Hi there, and welcome to the second season of the Humans in AI podcast. In this podcast, we dive into the real-life stories of the top leaders and entrepreneurs within the artificial intelligence, high-performance computing and data center space. These people truly are at the top of their game. We have honest and authentic conversations with all our guests. We'll chat about their career journeys, the highs and the lows, and the lessons they've learned from the mistakes they've made, and the victories they've celebrated along the way. It's all about sharing their experiences and knowledge. We talk about the company they're currently in and how they see the future of the space. So if you're looking for practical advice from people who've walked the same path, or just a little inspiration, you're in the right place. We're going to be releasing new episodes every Thursday, so make sure you stay tuned. Hey Brandon, how are you doing?
Good, Nick. How are you?
Yeah, great, thank you. Brilliant to actually have you on here. Obviously, we've been talking now for the last couple of weeks, and you've been kind enough to pay attention and watch some of the other clips of the other guests that we've had on as well. So look, for the benefit of everybody else that's going to be listening, do you mind just doing a bit of an intro, who you are, your current role, and where you're working? Is that all right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Brandon Peccoralo, Vice President of Sales and Partnerships at Voltage Park. Prior to that, I was in data center and cloud computing, going on my 20-year anniversary in 2026. So 19 years in the industry. Was a programmer as a kid, went to college to get my computer science degree, and was paying through college, actually interning at a startup in the data center industry. And that's just how I got my start. You know, I fell in love with it. It was right place, right time. I was very lucky, didn't jump around. And yeah, here I am.
You've done better than me. You've weathered better than me as well. I think we're both 20 years in it. So you look a few years younger than me still. So I'm very jealous.
Thanks. I have two babies. So we woke up at 4:30 in the morning this morning. So I don't know how well I look, but if I had four more hours of sleep, I probably would look a little bit better.
You've got a few more years of that, so just get used to it, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So look, brilliant. So obviously you started life as an engineer, so you were a techie when you got started. So what made you put the tools down, so to speak, and move into the dark side and go into sales?
Yeah, so not necessarily an engineer. I was a software programmer. I was programming, back when AOL was around, and I was getting in trouble as a kid doing programming on the AOL platform. And my dad got a phone call from AOL, saying, "What are you doing, being a hacker?" And he had no idea what they were talking about. And that was me, messing around, just breaking stuff. And I thought that was fun. So I was always a tech head, a programmer. Went to college for it. Why did I go into sales? Was because I wasn't the best at programming. My first job offer was at a company called Telcordia. And when I stepped into the room, right, when the rubber hit the road, I looked around, and even after doing, programming multiple languages for years, I realized I was never going to be the best. Mm-hmm. And that didn't settle well with me. And so I was able to jump into a startup called Interact. We switched the name to ColoTrack. We were the first agency to basically consult for data center colocation, migrations, expansions. And I walked into a data center as a young kid and thought it was the coolest thing. I thought I was in Star Trek or Star Wars, whatever it was. It was just it opened my eyes, and I said, "This is where I'm going to work one day." And I just had that goal, I had that vision, and I stuck with it, and it worked out.
just a bit. I mean, to be fair, it is amazing walking into data centers. I remember walking into my first one. It was Rabobank, the Dutch bank, and they were responsible for some of the largest sort of volume of credit card transactions around the world. And
ultra secure.
So I was actually responsible for looking after all the HVACs and the maintenance of the data centers. So before I got into recruitment, so I was doing that, and I just remember being absolutely blown away by the whole facility and the site. So it definitely gives you a taste for it, and I can see why you've progressed in the industry since then. So you started off there in sales, obviously progressed your career quite a lot from there onwards as well. So what happened next? Obviously you did about 6-7 years. Obviously started off as a junior and built your way up.
That's right. And I used my computer science background, CompTIA like background to have more technical discussions with customers so I could be seen as a consultant. My boss told me, don't be the car salesman guy at the dealership that runs out to the person's car and asks them what's their budget, where's their wife, who's the decision maker, right? Be the person that's coming out of the mechanic service center and knows what the heck they're talking about, because that's what's going to build confidence and trust. So I was always chasing that, and I actually found my niche in high performance computing, liquid cooled high performance computing. In the early 2000s, this was going on with universities, big engineering companies, big healthcare companies. So I've actually done multiple HPC jobs as a salesperson, but been in the room when people are designing the network topology, designing the hardware, designing inside the boxes, because these are all custom solutions. And so I really learned the intricacies of high performance and high power computing before it was cool. And that eventually gets me picked up by a company called DataBank to be the general manager of the Georgia Tech liquid-cooled supercomputers in Atlanta Tech Square, which was the biggest job I've ever taken on. I had to leave the state that I was born, raised, and educated in. Huge opportunity. That was my first cutting my teeth proverbially in management, and I had just visibility into everything about that one data center. I was kind of like the general manager, CEO of like the local, just that one data center. I got to see everything, and the CFO and CEO and EVP of DataBank were kind enough to give me that shot and that opportunity and trust me with that. So that was kind of where my career shifted from individual contributor to somewhat of an executive at the time, and then later a full-blown executive.
And how did you find that? Because I think I think we've all seen it. Just because you're a great sales guy, and in your case, you were brilliant at sales, not just because you were good at selling, but you had that technical knowledge and you gave that trust. But that doesn't necessarily enable you to pivot into being a good leader, and manager, inspiring confidence in a team, but also running the general management side of things. So how did you find that sort of, that leap? Did it take away all the things that made you great, or did you actually find it easy?
Definitely not easy. Middle management is wildly difficult, and it's wildly pressuresome, and it's a lot of attention. It's a lot of mathematics, right? Pipeline funnel, and patience, while also being able to move quick. It's everything. It's such an undertaking, and no, I definitely wasn't immediately successful and immediately this is easy peasy and I'm just the greatest leader. That's not the case whatsoever. Definitely learned a lot along the way, but I had mentors. That's the major difference. So when you have a mentor, you can fall down, but no one's going to let you fail. No one's going to let the organization fail because they have your back, but they are going to let you get a little bit of mud and dirt on your knees and skin your elbows a bit. And then you pick them up and you say, hey, what have you learned from this? So what did I learn was the most important thing about management is two things. One is motivation. Find out what motivates every single person, because every single person's different, and work with them on that. Two, I guess it's three things. Two, respect is never commanded. It's never, you never lead by fear. I mean, sometimes that works, but often, the time I was younger than people I was managing, you have to prove yourself. And so you need to take work off of other people's desks. You need to come into deals and be able to elevate the deal, elevate the structure, help out, and add some value. So you can help your team, and then also you need to pick up the oars and row the boat with everybody else. Don't just sit there and be the orchestrator of everything. Roll your sleeves up. I loved rolling my sleeves up. And then the last thing I really had to double down on and continue learning to this day is recruiting. As you know, right? I'm sitting here with a recruiting master. That's wildly difficult, because salespeople can sell you on the first call and the second call. If they can't sell themselves, I don't even know why they're on the damn interview. I don't even know how they got to your desk in the first place, right? But you need to be able to see through people. You need to be able to pick up on body language. And so you need to hire slow. And that's what, in the most recent part of my career, I've really prided myself in getting correct, because you can waste a lot of time, a lot of money, on the company's dime if you're not good at scouting and recruiting.
Yeah.
And it's very parallel to sports. People parallel to sports all the time, but it's so true.
It really is. I think, like you say, you get the wrong person in, it's going to kill your time, kill your money. You get it right. And for that reason, hiring slow, agreed. You should constantly be hiring. You should always be, if you meet somebody that you think can take your business forward, make room. Yeah, I think that's generally the sort of way, particularly in sales. I think if they're going to bring more money in, bring more customer opportunities in, then they're only going to add some value. The other way, get the wrong one. That's the killer.
Yes.
And how did you do it with? Because obviously, you've got a team. Sometimes they're older than you. You're building that respect. You're in the trenches. I'm assuming you didn't carry a target as well then. So you had the overall team number that you were worried about, or were you actually having to sell yourself?
Correct. No. I would never partake in the player coach role. Like that was, luckily all of the organizations I worked for were matured, smart leaders, probably the best leaders. I mean, I'm really seriously so lucky. Because when you leave one company and go to the next one, you're like, wow, everybody at the last company was so smart. And everybody in the room was so smart. Now I'm the smart guy in the room. And then you meet more smart people and you're like, now I'm the dumb guy in the room, right? So you always want to be the dumb guy in the room. Because when you leave, you wind up being the smart guy in the room just by like osmosis, learning from everybody. So monkey see, monkey do has been a big part of that, career trajectory as well. But what I would say about the hiring piece is, I learned that volume, just having a huge team doesn't mean you're going to do huge numbers.
No.
So you have to find the right people, the right fit, whether that's both culturally and with talent wise. Mm-hmm. Now you also have to find the people that you could teach that are open to being taught, because in our industry things are flying at rapid pace. If you're not, keeping up with it and studying, you're going to get left behind. Mm-hmm. And so these are kind of the traits that I look for, and I don't like loading a room or a bunker with salespeople. I like having special ops people that are very good, proven track record. If they don't have a proven track record, we can make one, but you have to be able to be taught and moldable. You have to roll your sleeves up. You still have to cold call. You still have to be sitting next to other people, so you need to go into the office. If you're young and you're not going into an office, you are making a giant mistake. Work from home is great for many roles. For sales, it is terrible. You get stagnant. You sit at home. You don't get social at home. You're talking to your spouse or your roommates, and those are the same people you're talking to over and over again. You're not developing, and you're not learning through osmosis in that sense. So, not a fan from work from home. Not a fan of loading up the sales bunker with tons of salespeople. I'd rather be more prescriptive with how we do it.
It's impossible. I mean, junior talent, early talent, how on earth are they going to learn? Quite frankly, by being sat at home. You don't learn. You can't spitball ideas across the office.
That's right.
You can't listen to other people and how they do things. It's impossible. It's great for the senior exec and the field sales guy that's out and about meeting customers. But I do feel for people coming into sales. Unless they're in an office, they're probably never going to be able to actually meet their potential.
Agreed. And if you're in an office, right, like play the scene out, and some man or some woman is constantly number one or number two or number three on the sales quota charts, and you're just working from home seeing this, you don't know how to beat this person. No. How do I get to Dan or Kelly's status? It's like, well, if you were in the office, you could be like listening to them, going out to lunch with them. My boss at IO Data Centers, he used to take me out to lunch almost every day. And we got to form a bond. And then I would go back in the bullpen and I would listen to all these really good, talented people, especially the solutions engineers. I would always shadow the solutions engineers because I wanted to hear what they were talking about. And then I would look it up. And I was like, oh, okay, right. So I'm improving my acumen. And the bigger your vocabulary, the more articulate you become. The more articulate you are, the easier it is to sell because people can understand you and believe you and trust you if you're articulate. If you're not articulate, you're just, hurting yourself that way. So I became articulate mostly by pointing out and figuring out who's awesome and shadowing them.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. I mean, and so that was your first foray into management. It's obviously you learned that from IO. You took that into to Databank, selling obviously cloud, colo, HPC type solutions.
Yeah.
What what came the point to make you leave? Because obviously you had a really successful career there and you got into leadership. But sometimes, you don't join a company to retire there, right? So, at what point did you think actually it's time to move on?
It was personally in my head and in my gut. I missed the Bitcoin wave. There was like one day I had a lot of opportunities to get into Bitcoin, and I was just naysaying it every single day. It was just like it's BS. It's not valued to anything. It's just a dream coin. It's very abstract, and I'm literally naysaying it to everybody. And someone that was, a salesperson that I know from a long time ago, he was big into Bitcoin. He sold it for, let's just say, a lot of money. And I said, damn it, I don't want to miss out on another wave. And AI hit the scene. I think that was probably around either like 2022, right? When ChatGPT 3 came out.
Yeah.
It was kind of on the heels of the NVIDIA H100 coming out, right, in 2020, I believe that was, or 2022 or 2023. I'll have to look that up. But you had this hardware and software harmony that if you're a technologist and you see that, you know that's a formula for success. I was blown away by AI, and every day I would read the news because that's the first thing I do in the morning. So the news that I'm interested in, not like political news. That'd be stupid. You just start off the day all mad.
You don't want to look at that. You'll only
No,
upset
I'm
you.
trying to start the day on the right foot. Gym and happy stuff. But so I would read this stuff, and I'm like, this is happening at lightning pace, and this is really impressive. So I started loading models into my home lab at home. So I built a small data center in my basement, and I have servers, and I had a 3090 from, believe it or not, a Bitcoin miner that went belly up in one of our data centers. And so I just started, running models. I learned pruning, quantization, LoRa's, and text to image, and all of that. And I just started entrenching myself in the AI community and wound up on the desk of the CEO of Voltage Park, where I am today. And he's like, hey, look, I need somebody from your business industry, that sector, that knows it. We have amazing assets, we have amazing people, and we have really good data center contracts. We just need to really make this stuff work first before we go to market, because there's a ton of failures in this industry. So there was like a multi-pronged job opportunity with Ozan Kaya, who's the CEO of Voltage Park. We just got along. We understood each other. We were on the same sheet of music. He gave me a goal, and he said, look, if you want to join, let me know by Friday, but we're moving fast. And I had a really difficult decision to make because I was in love with DataBank. It's the best company to work for if you can get your 2 feet in that door. The culture is fantastic. They're always in growth mode, but it's steady Eddie growth mode, well funded, well led. So it pained me, like literally pained me to quit.
You left on a high, by the sounds of it.
We
You
always want
loved
to
it.
leave
It
on
was
a
going
high
well.
too. You
Yeah.
don't want to, if you're hot, then leave when you're hot. Strike when the
Yeah.
iron's hot. But that wasn't the intent or the case in this matter. This was a personal matter where I didn't want to watch some big boom go flying by me and call myself a technologist. The other piece to it is you get to put a check in a box
Yeah.
as a lifer of a technology like fan, to be able to say I worked for a California, San Francisco startup, and not have to move my family, and I can do that remotely. What an awesome box to check for me
Yeah.
in my life to say I did that.
That's fantastic. So you're working for Voltage Park, SF startup, fantastic business, bringing the harmony, like I say, the hardware and the software together in this crazy AI world that we find ourselves in. What was the clear mandate then? So, for you coming in to take that job, what were your key objectives? Obviously, you're in sales, of course, but they were kind of best kept secret type things. So,
Yeah.
what was the main sort of objective for you?
So CEO says, here's the company, here's the books, snoop around. If you like what you see, let's talk. And so I looked at the data center contracts and I said, holy crap. And he said, what, is that bad or good? And I said, these are amazing. So they hired a broker from CBRE to do the data center transactions. This person who brokered the data center transactions for Voltage Park is an incredibly close friend of mine. And I said, no way, he did this? Wow, of course, right? And so the prices for the data centers that they got, this was before the data center and AI boom, let's call it, where prices went up 20, 30, 40, and then eventually doubled. So they got their price locked in at data centers for a very low cost for rent. They also got all the locations and the lowest cost of power or energy in the United States. So Washington State, for example, we have 2 very, very large data centers, tens of megawatts. And that's like 3 point something cents per kilowatt hour. And it's 99% hydro with speckles of wind when it's available. And so we have a massive footprint in Seattle that is 99% renewable energy. So, that's huge for marketing purposes and just overall good behavior when these GPUs are so wasteful on waste energy and heat. Salt Lake City, that's with DataBank, and that's a really good location for much lower cost than California. And it's lower latency. Dallas, Texas, equidistant from California and New York, 6 cents per kilowatt hour, and then Ashburn, Virginia. Those are our locations. So I said, this is fantastic. Like very, very good data center topology. How about the debt and the depreciation on the hardware? What are we looking at as a run rate? So because that's what I'm chasing. They didn't have a sales group. So as a sales group, your mission is get the company cash flow positive. First, you got to get it break even. Obviously, then go cash flow positive. What's the run rate I'm chasing? Looked at the books, no debt. So what do you mean no debt on the hardware? $1 billion worth of HGX H100s. $1 billion, 24,000 HGX H100s, no debt on that. We got that through a billionaire who created a nonprofit navigation fund to fund the advancement of AI in the general open source community and that mentality. And so he started a generative AI company, and that naturally needed hardware and infrastructure. And I think he just added a couple zeros to the checkbook when he cut that check to Dell and Jensen, and they rolled it out across 6 different data centers. And we had to come in and really hammer operational excellence before we were just going to go to market and build this and learn on other people's dimes. That wouldn't be fair.
So you've got great locations across the US, great contracts, great power contracts. You've got all these H100s. You've got this amazing hardware, no debt. You must be thinking people are pulling your chain, right? That sounds too good to be true. But it isn't. But it is true. Yeah. So I guess as much as there was an emotional attachment to DataBank, the decision was easy, I suppose.
No, definitely wasn't easy. It was for where I'm at now. In hindsight, it was correct. It was the right thing. I mean, I'm getting an MBA without having to go to post grad. When you have somebody like Ozan, the CEO, who's willing to just trust you, obviously he went through a rigorous interview process. He called a ton of my references, and then he just decided, hey, this is the right person on the right seat on this bus, and I'm going to trust him. And that meant volumes to me, right? And so because of that, I worked my tail off. When somebody believes in you, and the pressure's on, and the company's relying on you so they can make their salaries, so they can make their bonuses, so we can hire more people, so we can buy next generation product. That all was on my shoulders, and I didn't hate the pressure. I ran towards it. I wanted that, and so that was kind of, and especially having 2 babies, that made life really difficult. But I was, they were kind of my motivation. I'm going to do this for my family. This is it.
Yeah, no, I can see that. 5 kids in my house, so it's
I'm not doing
now.
that.
They're older, and don't do 5. It's a killer.
No,
have more sanity than that. But they are your motivation, and working for a leader as well that gives you that trust and that confidence to go out and be you and do your thing is incredible, right? So obviously you've worked your nuts off for the last 12 months. So what have been the major challenges that you've been facing?
The major challenge is, how much time do you have? How much time is this, like a Joe Rogan 3-hour podcast?
We'll
I
cut
would
it up.
no, I'm kidding. What was the most challenging part is, number one, hiring. It took 3-4 months to find the right people. Again, I didn't want to load the room up and just kind of shotgun blast this. I wanted to be very tactical. And so I would say hiring. My last boss at DataBank really sat me down and helped me with recruiting. And so I was able, and I wrote a lot of that stuff down. And so I was able to do that. And we landed on 2 incredible sales employees. We landed on, and promoted from within, a solutions engineer. We landed on an amazing vice president of marketing, and she hired an amazing team as well. And so building the business unit with patience was probably most difficult for me, because I have a run rate that I'm chasing, right?
Yeah.
Now we did get cash flow positive, and that was a fantastic feather on my cap. But I wanted to get there sooner and sooner, and what I realized was slow down, right? Make the right decisions and slow down. Globally, the industry in itself has a wild amount of challenges. You're not selling to CTOs, you're not selling to CIOs, you're not selling to VP of infrastructure. The x86 compute platform is a lot more stable. It's got a purpose to it, right? You're going to run your mission critical systems, your ERP, your websites, your et cetera, right? That stuff goes down, major problems. So that's a nice sourcing and procurement process. It's a mature process from big enterprises all the way down to small mom and pop shops. Generative AI living on the GPU engineering platform is wildly new, and it has very young buyers in it. And these buyers are programmers, software developers, sometimes systems engineers, but they're not people that have been in the industry 20, 30, 40 years. They're not CTOs. In some instances, the enterprise is buying, and you do talk to those people. But probably 80% of the buyers in this world, or in this sector, in this industry sector, are super young, super brilliant, and have tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars from private equity, venture capitalists, or just billionaires, right? Yeah. Given to them to develop something. The beginning challenge was only 1 in 10 of those generative AI companies, mainly highly concentrated in the Bay Area, were becoming successful. So that would mean 9 out of 10 were failing or just wouldn't make it to profitability. And so we were challenged very early with that. Later, the industry has a ton of supply hit the market. The NVIDIA, there no more supply chain issues. The NVIDIA HGX H100s and the H200s were being sold like hotcakes. Simultaneously, there was some failure, and generative AI companies dropping off the map. So you had the demand somewhat dwindle a little bit as the winners rose and the losers, fell. And then you had a ton of supply hit the market. Mm-hmm. So what happened is you had a very rapid commoditization in the market of the H100 pricing. Yeah. And so people had to get creative. So you had to get creative in a various, multiple different ways. Traditionally, what you'll do is you'll work your way up the application stack into managed services, platform as a service, and you can make more margins with that. But that's really dangerous to do if you don't know what you're doing and you move too fast, and especially on the GPU engine. So what we did was we just focused on being really good at hardware, uptime, reliability, cybersecurity, and just make sure this stuff works. And we'll go out and we'll tell people about it. And so right now that's what we're doing. We're just building that brand.
So how do you do that? Because I think that's a really important point you make, because obviously you sit there at the beginning of your tenure or beginning of the financial year and you have your business plan. And those business plans are great, aren't they? Because they're just this nice idea sometimes.
Yeah, you're 30, 60, 90.
And then you're in an environment or a sector, to be fair, recruitment's the same, where it can be so volatile and it can really change. So you've got these AI tech startups, like you say, that one out of 10 could be successful, perhaps. You've then got oversupply, all those different things. How do you sort of future-proof the business, so to speak, and actually de-risk yourself? Because obviously you're not committing just to going after, I don't know, partner models or AI tech startups. Is it going after different verticals? Is it broadening the service portfolio, as well as being just really good at what you do? Or was that really the whole focus, was just doubling down on being really good at providing really good GPUs at the right cost in the right location?
The latter. It was just being really good at providing volume, scalable GPUs that we had to obsess over having availability, right? So the x86 compute platform worked swimmingly. Typically, the only things you would run into, because it was so matured over 30, 40 years, was network, right? So the downtime people would have in x86 traditional cloud computing was either the data center had an issue, power, whatever, or more common was the network. Something would, routers and firewalls would get into a loop and cause, flapping. DDoS attack, someone screwed up, an IP table, and etc. So in x86, you had rare problems, but they were typically human caused or natural disaster caused. Flip over to this, GPU engineering platform. These things are screaming at all times, and they're paralleled, right? So they're acting as one giant neural network. And so they all have to be in sync, and they all have to be interconnected with the same fabric, same settings, same drivers. It's fairly complicated. Beginning of the time, we had a lot of thermal issues. So the NVIDIA HGX, just like the new series, the Blackwells are running into some thermal issues, but there was thermal issues with the GPUs, the HBM3 memory, the RAM. Then there was NVLink, InfiniBand issues. And so we had to focus on rectifying that, building redundancies across everything we possibly could. So if there was a failure, when there is a failure, we have a workflow on how to fix it. So really operate, like when I joined Voltage Park, it was a lot of operations. It was a lot of like, let's get this down before we, obviously we have to build the brand and go to market, and that takes 12 to 16 months online through SEO and other mechanics. But while we're doing that, we need to build this product to make sure it's bulletproof, which is very expensive, we found, because you need to staff the data centers with at least 2 people around the clock, because these things need to be reseated, swapped, RMA'd, the GPUs, what I'm referencing, maybe even the RAM. Then you need massive amounts of network plumbers that know what the heck they're doing with IB, InfiniBand, because that gets buggy. And what did get buggy as you got into very large scale, beyond a rail, which is 256, beyond a large superpod, which is over 2,000 GPUs, you have to have absolute expertise there. You can't be learning on the fly. And then the last thing I'll say is you have to have around the world support. So we had to hire people in London, Poland, and Singapore to, proverbially pick up the phone for any customer tickets, and so we have to follow the sun with that. So that's very expensive. It's very, very expensive to operate this business and to keep it up to the operational excellence that people expect of this. Just, let's just say 8 GPUs go down. You could crash an entire customer's project if 8 go down, if they don't checkpoint well. And so that's oftentimes hundreds of thousands of dollars, poof, gone because of your outage.
Yeah.
And so we had to really take that seriously and say we're not going to be known for having that, right? We're going to be known for stability, scalability, and let's just focus on that. And it worked, because now a lot of AI as a service and software as a service providers use us. And they know we're not going to grow up to compete with them.
So for you, the operational excellence piece and actually just doing something really, really, really good is what is giving your customer base that sort of confidence. And is that the primary differentiator? So if we think of just who your competitors are, we don't have to name them, right? But if I don't know, an AI developer, tech partner, startup, was looking to come and seek the services of Voltage Park, why should they use you over one of your competitors. Is it down to operational excellence and price primarily? Is that what sets you apart, do you think?
Well, that's a loaded gun question. A lot of people are buying just on price.
Yeah.
That's the immaturity of the market
Yeah.
buyer. There's a lot of brokers that are racing to zero, and they're not peeling back the layers of the onion, and doing a true sourcing and procurement process. The bigger companies, the enterprises. So now the enterprises are buying, which is fantastic. We're getting like real RFIs, real RFPs from real companies in the Fortune 500. You're just like, what a breath of fresh air this is, right? We're actually going to be able to discuss and showcase our value proposition of why we are different from all these different reasons I was just mentioning. The problem is that the quick buyer is looking at bottom line and dollars per GPU hour. Now, if you have downtime because you cheaped out, you're going to get what you pay for. You might wind up spending more money because you tried to like buy the cheapest product off the shelf, and it wasn't the best.
And that never works anyway, does it? I mean, in all walk of life, really. So, so is there an education exercise from you guys around actually sort of trying to educate those buyers, or is it too late because they're just literally spinning it up? Whoever's cheapest, they're just going on, maybe going to a broker or something.
They're getting smarter now. They are, because again, the winners that have risen to the top, they need stability, and they need a partnership too, right? I know that's like so cliche, but history repeats itself. So the traditional x86 cloud computing industry pendulum swinging from going all to the hyperscalers. Everybody thought Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Oracle were going to just destroy every data center's business. And it would also destroy the mid-market cloud provider. And for a minute there, it looked like that was happening. You're just like, oh my goodness, everybody's in love with AWS. But then the pendulum swung back to a hybrid IT. Meaning you can have some on-prem, you could have some with DataBank, you could have some with Voltage Park, you could have some with AWS. That's what's happening right now, is people are recognizing AWS and the other hyperscalers are very expensive. Yes, you sign with those providers for your inference because you expect high uptime and you don't expect to be fired for signing with AWS. But then you talk to your buddy in SF at a meetup or at the bar or whatever, and there's like, we're with Voltage Park and the speeds are faster, the uptime's great, but I know the guys there, they're great, the guys and gals, right? They pick up the phone, it's the same person. We go to events together, and it's a good partnership. They've sent us leads. We reciprocate a lot to our customer base with leads. Again, we're just the infrastructure layer up to Slurm and Kubernetes. Everybody above that, when we get those leads, we send it to them. And so we have an ecosystem, and that's what's happening. This industry is mirroring what the x86 computing industry was doing with the relationship between buyers and hyperscalers and down market from there.
So true partnerships then. True partnerships, driving best service,
partnerships,
all that. Fantastic. So you're doing that, and then obviously, as you mentioned before, the industry is just reacting. It's changing all the time. New things getting thrown at you. You just look at the news. So obviously, we have things like, DeepSeek that came out, made everyone panic, and it's like, wow, you could do so much more with less and that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Normally, to be fair, you panic for a little bit and then you realise actually it's just another wave of innovation. How do you see that sort of panning out for you guys? I'm sure there was a bit of panic at the start, or was it just idle curiosity? What's the plan?
There's a video I'm going to post. I actually called this was going to happen. That's the only time I'm going to pat my back. Maybe we should cut that out. But I did. I called it. And most people that have been in tech understand that hardware and software chase each other. And this was a huge calling for software to optimize the hardware. So this came at no surprise to me. And history does repeat itself again. If you remember virtualization, the advent of virtualization in 2009, right? So hyperthreading 2006, virtualization 2009 creates AWS. It creates the cloud. And everybody in the data center industry panicked. Oh, that's the death of the data center. I can take hundreds of servers, if not thousands of servers, and virtualize them into a fraction of the footprint. I can take blade chassis and have 3 cabinets instead of 300. The data centers are going out of business. But what that did was it innovated data mobility. So now you could, take those snapshots of your VMs, your virtual machines, and move them, vMotion them, or use different tools. You could replicate them. You could do so. Big industries like data backup, disaster recovery, active replication. These industries were birthed and then boomed, and so did the data center industry. So due to software optimization, where you could do more with less, we did more. And so that's how I saw the GPU industry, right? The AI industry. It was wildly expensive, and it took a ton of horsepower just to run a training model. And if you're looking at what we're doing now with video, high definition video, 4K, like, you know how much data that is? It is an absolute ton. And so it just wasn't sustainable. And when the numbers were extrapolated, you would need gigawatts on power and huge data center campuses. And so all the data center providers raced to build this out. Fast forward, what do we see? We see pruning of models, quantization of models, LoRa's, all these different mechanics of models that can lower the weight of that model to make it more mobile, palatable for the system. It's just not these massive data sets anymore. And it's consolidated too. So now you've got Gemma, Grok, OpenAI, right, Llama, and they're just Mistral or Anthropic. They're kicking butt, and a lot of it's open source. And so, is it an enigma that China, saw all this, has access to worldwide, huge, massive, wide open community, open source community? They've got access to Llama. They've got access to all these different open source models. Do we really think they weren't going to go in and inspect it and study it and make their own, especially with being somewhat choked on the hardware that they could use? No, these are some of the smartest, most hardworking people on the planet. Of course they came out with a better way to do things. And we should be thanking them, because now the price commoditized in the market to where it's affordable, and you could do more with less. And so now you have new entrants into the market where this wasn't possible 2 years ago. So thank you to the folks that created DeepSeek from Voltage Park.
I mean, it is one of those things. It's like, you always want to be the one chasing, the guy at the front of the race, right? Because that makes you go faster.
That's right. When was
when you're in the
competition
front,
bad?
you're looking behind your shoulder, right? So
When was
it
competition
is
a
always a
bad
winner.
thing?
So it helps with innovation. And in terms of, obviously, we're only in February, right? So we're just coming to the end of February. I think date's 25th, looking at my laptop. There's been loads going on. It's a crazy start to the year. What do you think the rest of 25 is going to sort of look like for us?
That's the best part about this is you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be surprises that come out of left field because there's that many people involved in the development of this community. If you look back when Bill Gates and Wozniak were going toe to toe to develop, an OS, this is kind of the same thing, just with more people involved because it's a global marketplace. When Microsoft and Apple and other developers were going at it, the internet wasn't that, it wasn't this global. You didn't have GitHub, you didn't have Hugging Face. So what I predict is just more things popping up like DeepSeek at a left field. And don't forget that AI is not the only thing that runs on GPUs. Bitcoin mining, quite frankly, made GPUs very popular as a new engineering platform. Blockchain lives on it. Material sciences, weather studies, like some of the massive university studies are done on GPUs, and it has nothing to do with generative AI. So, one, I think there's going to be other platforms and other technologies that are birthed from the GPU. If you look at driverless cars, like the Waymo company, they're powered by GPUs, that LiDAR and everything. interfaces with GPUs for ultra high processing and parallel processing to make that car drive without a human being in it. That's not necessarily artificial intelligence. So I'm predicting that there will be other technologies and major breakthroughs done on top of this GPU engineering platform. You'll have, not in 2025 or 2026, integration with quantum, but that's probably very, very realistic in the next 7 to 10 years. And I think AI, by the scales of Elon Musk and Meta, who are building in the hundreds of thousands of GPUs, AI is going to reach a point where it's probably indistinguishable that you're if you're talking to AI or interfacing with an AI on the LLM, large language model. So you'll see that, and then you'll see some companies go out of business too, right? What are we going to do with Shutterstock when you can make images that look really, really real, and you can make B-roll by typing in text and not having to go shoot a waterfall in the Niagara Falls? You can just create that on your computer. You don't need a professional photographer or videographer to do that anymore. So there's also some other dark areas that this can go towards.
I think, we get involved in those kind of conversations all the time now. So I think with AI, people get worried about what jobs it's going to take. I think a lot of it's going to take tasks away first before we need to worry about that. But there's things now, right? We're using AI to do a lot of the stuff for us all the time, whether it be note taking and all that kind of stuff. It's brilliant. Yes, we'll see jobs, but actually I'm hopeful that with AI, what it's going to do is just going to give us more cooler jobs, and we're going to get to do more exciting and better things, because AI is going to do a lot of the other stuff that we don't want to do anymore for us.
100%.
So it is exciting, and I think from you guys, it sounds like with Voltage Park, obviously, there's loads of things coming out, left field, right, whatever. It's about being agile, about being able to sort of face off to the different things that are coming at you. And obviously just being true to what you're doing, right? And being really, really good at what you guys do.
Yeah. And if you look at industry players and, again, traditional cloud, when they started biting off more than they could chew and getting over their skis, they disappeared. So we're very cognizant of that. And you don't want to race up the application stack. And we're building out, definitely, we're building out portals, and we're building out orchestration and software ourselves. But, to compete with the, Together AIs and the Run AIs, that's just, you would have to spend a ton of money to do that, and you're kind of shifting your focus. And that's when you are managing something that needs to be babysat, these GPUs and the network, it needs to be babysat. You need to, really, really focus on that. So that's just what we're going to do, and we'll be here for the next generation of Blackwells as well. We see that the longevity and life on the H100s, they're actually really, really good. We had one customer say, this stuff just works. And we said, well, why aren't you using any other platform? You guys have all the money in the world. And they said, this stuff just works. And we actually had a customer, Paracel, where we have an announcement with them. They were able to run DeepSeek on 2 H100s on our NVLink backbone better and faster than 2 H200s, which was literally said to be impossible due to the amount of VRAM on the H200. It turns out if you tune your network and you tune your storage and everything works really damn well and is burnt in, 2 H100s got the job done better than 2 H200s. So shots fired, and we're releasing that press release here shortly.
Well, that's incredible. And that goes to show what it is like working with you guys, rather than going for a big hyperscaler or something like that, working closer with you, working with your team, and really sort of getting that best-in-class service.
Yeah, that's right. So if you're a customer and you come in, you want to talk to somebody to help you optimize the platform. Maybe you don't need InfiniBand. Maybe Ethernet's for you, right? And maybe you need to sit down with somebody and have a consultation. Maybe you need a trial to work through this. We get into the weeds with our customers about what they're doing on our platform, what's the size of their data that they're storing, how many transactions they're doing, so we can call up Vast and Penguin Solutions and say, can you come in here and help us tune this to exactly the right, the right knobs, to the right, perspective to what this customer needs to get their their application done. You're not going to get that at the hyperscalers, that kind of attention. They can't touch individual systems and rails and optimize them for specific use cases. So that's what you're going to get when you come to the private market and in this sector of the entire industry, is the ability to say, let's find a way to say yes. This isn't necessarily standard. It's not going to break anything, and as long as it's not a risk, our CISO doesn't see it as a risk, let's help these people out. And that's what you're going to get. Look, it's not exclusive to Voltage Park. The other challenge is there's really great competition. There's some terrible competition out there, but there is some really great competition as well, and they deserve kudos too. And if we lose to some of those people on those deals, you can walk away going, all right, we'll get them on the next run, but we'll lose with honor, and our chin up if it's some of those. Now, if I lose to some of the smaller guys that are what I call whack-a-moles, then I'm going to get a little ticked off. But
you can't really worry about other people, can you? You've just got to do what you're good at and do the best you guys can do, and get the messaging out there, and obviously promote the brand, which hopefully this show's done today. So if there's people listening and they're curious and they need some help, then they probably should give you a call.
I hope so.
Well, we'll leave that for there for now. It would be great to have you back in a year, because obviously you've 10 months, I think you've been over at Voltage Park. It's been a crazy year so far. Curious to see what happens in the next 12 months as well.
Me too. I would love to be back. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Brilliant. All right, great. All the best. Take care.
Have a good day.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you're looking for more practical advice or inspiration from those who've been there and done it, stick with us. We're releasing new episodes every week, so don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and follow Asobi on LinkedIn. This episode was brought to you by Asobi. I'm the founder and managing director, and it's our mission to connect the very best talent to the most exciting scale-ups in the artificial intelligence, machine learning and data center space. Thanks again. See you next time.